NASA, also known as the National Aerobics Squad Association. Right, no, that's wrong. The full meaning of NASA is the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So, yeah, NASA is always up to something. Always. Since the time they were created in 1958 till now, those guys have always been up to something. The amazing thing about NASA and what they're always up to is that most times nobody knows what they're up to. But that has changed. Today we know what NASA is up to, and it's something called the SLS moon rocket. Today on Super Freaky Science, we'll be checking out the SLS moon rocket and we'll be looking at NASA's recent test of the rocket. Okay, where do we start? Well, we start at the present. The Space Launch System, you know, the system that was primed to take NASA's Artemis astronauts to space, well, it recently went through a final and, might we add, a successful hot fire test of the core stage on Thursday. The test took place at NASA's favourite testing station, the Stennis Space Center outside Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. The test began at 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time on March 19, 2021, and lasted for about 8 minutes, which is just as long as you want a rocket hot fire test to last for. So, what's the consequence of this test? Why is it so important to NASA? Is it even very important to NASA? The answer to that last question is yes, and why wouldn't it be? The SLS is, by several country miles, the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built, and NASA has built a ridiculous number of rockets. There's probably no entity on Earth that has built as many rockets as NASA, and this is, by far, the most powerful. So yes, it's a pretty huge deal. During the test, the rocket showed a bit of its power by generating about 1.6 million pounds of thrust within 7 seconds. That's just incredible. It's so incredible that if you don't have a great grasp of numbers, you may not be able to fully grasp how powerful that engine is. The point is that the SLS is an incredible piece of engineering. It's little wonder that the machine is the only rocket that our species has built that's capable of powering the next phase of America's space exploration dreams. And as you'd expect, the success of the hot fire test was another important milestone in NASA's dream of returning man to the moon, alongside the first woman. The test. This successful test was not the first of such tests. It was the 8th and final test in the green run of tests that were made to make sure the SLS can do what it's designed to do. You may be pushed to ask, why so many tests? Well, there's probably no other field of engineering where what's happening isn't certain until it's tested out other than the field of rocket science. Sure, NASA may have built the strongest and most powerful rocket in theory, but until the SLS goes through tests that determine that it can do what it was made to do, the job of the designers will not even be half done. In fact, in some ways, these tests are when the real design begins. It's when the test answers questions on how the rocket might behave through different stages of launch that the rocket engineers will know whether they've created something or created a huge, beautiful dud. Launch. So, what was the test precisely? What happened during this test? Let's attempt to answer that. Before the launch, about 18 to 20 tankers full of liquid oxygen and hydrogen filled about 6 barges with the propellant. The barges were then towed to the B-2 rocket stand. At the rocket stand, the rocket core stage system was loaded with 700,000 gallons of supercooled propellant, and then the 4 engines of the rockets were fired at the same time. This will simulate roughly what the rocket will endure during launch, and will test how well the engine can endure it. The core stage includes the 4 engines: liquid hydrogen tank, liquid oxygen tank, and avionics, computers and electronics. These electronics are what you may refer to as the rocket's brains. During the test, the engine goes through 3 power levels, as well as movements that simulate flight. These movements are called gimbaling. Before the test, the team testing rocket repaired a liquid oxygen pre-valve and made other minor repairs on the rocket. This test wasn't the first hot-fire test for the SLS. There was one in January, however, the first test in January ended a lot quicker than expected. The fire was expected to last for 8 minutes, but the whole thing cut off just after 1 minute. However, the second test lasted for 8 minutes and managed to provide the designing teams with all the data they needed to make sure the rocket was right for launch. After this test, the rocket will be shipped to NASA's Kennedy Space Station in Florida, where it will be integrated and assembled alongside the Orion spacecraft that will be carrying the astronauts to the moon. Now it's time for our little wager. We'll tell you a super freaky science fact right now. If you've not heard it before, you'll have to smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you have, well, still smash them anyway. Deal? Deal. Do you know that babies have 100 more bones than adults? Well, now you know. Thanks for the like. Let's move on. The flight to the moon. In December, NASA announced the name of the 18 astronauts that will be flying to the moon. When these astronauts land on the lunar South Pole, they will explore a part of the moon that no human beings have ever been before. They will stand on the shoulders of giants of the Apollo program, and we will be watching them from our super freaky science station. Don't ask us where it is or how we will watch them, just be grateful that we will. And that's all for today, guys. Remember to always stay super, leave the freaky to us. Goodbye.